So we often hear that dismissive avoidants rely on themselves to soothe, whereas anxious preoccupied tend to really externalize their soothing and need to rely on others. And we often hear that fearful avoidance or disorganized attachment individuals tend to go either way. They can go anxious and rely on other people for soothing, or they can self-soothe in their avoidance side. But I really wanted to just shed some light on this concept or idea of self-soothing in the context of dismissive avoidant attachment style today, and really discuss, do dismissive avoidants actually self-soothe and what a different alternative is. So first and foremost, I find that in one sense, dismissive avoidants can self-soothe because they are doing things themselves to help themselves soothe, but they're not properly soothing. They're really numbing and avoiding. And we'll often see when a dismissive avoidant deactivates, it's not like they deactivate and then they sit with themselves and soothe themselves and work through whatever problem or challenge they're facing from a conscious perspective. But instead, they take space and they avoid, they numb, they repress, they compartmentalize. They do all these things that in some cases are really just the opposite of soothing. And actual soothing really means working through the issue and dealing with the problem, right? So actual soothing would mean I'm not just going to repress and push down and then watch a bunch of television or play video games or binge eat food. Like those are more maladaptive coping mechanisms that have suboptimal results. Like there's usually long-term consequences to doing that for prolonged periods of time. And instead, what we want to look for, and this really applies to fearful avoidance and dismissive avoidance both, is when we go avoidant, if we feel the need to soothe by withdrawing, what we should then proceed to do is figure out what kind of feedback our feelings are giving us. So feelings are always giving us feedback, but they're usually giving us feedback about our internal world rather than our external world. So we may think, okay, so, Bob didn't call me back, and that's making me feel a certain way. Let's say you're a fearful avoidant and you're like, oh, then, that's triggering me. It's Bob, but it's not actually Bob. It's the meaning you give to Bob not calling you back. If Bob didn't call you back and you're like, oh, thank goodness, I really didn't feel like talking on the phone tonight, you'd be relieved. But if you give the meaning, oh my gosh, I'm unloved, nobody wants me, then you have that problem, right? So the problem is actually rooted intrinsically. And when we can start becoming aware that, guess what? Whenever you tell yourself a painful story like that, when you give painful meaning to events, it triggers a negative emotional response. And that emotional response is feedback. It's feedback to wake you up and let you know, hey, your thinking is hurting you. And it's giving you feedback about your internal reality more so than your external reality. And the other thing it gives us feedback about is our needs. If we have an unmet need, we can still have, like, maybe you just felt like you wanted to connect. And so there could be this element of, oh, it's too bad Bob didn't call me back because I was, looking forward to getting my connection needs met today through catching up and through having a nice conversation. So there's still the unmet need part. But just to clarify, if Bob doesn't call you back and it stops the need from being met, that will only hurt a little bit. But when we say, oh my gosh, I'm unlovable, I'm unwanted, everybody's going to reject me, when we story tell like that, it gives us a lot more intense of an emotional response. But either way, your feelings are giving you feedback about both. So when it comes to dismissive avoidance, something that they can often struggle with, and fearful avoidance as well, they can struggle to soothe by actually processing. And if we had steps to actually process our emotions, we would go step 1, notice the emotion. Step 2, figure out the meaning I give to the situation. Step 3, challenge that meaning. Just because Bob didn't call me back doesn't make me an unlovable person. Maybe Bob and I are not compatible, or maybe, Bob got busy, or he's forgetful, or we want different things in life. Or maybe Bob isn't interested in me, but that doesn't make me an unlovable person still, right? So we've got these dynamics where we want to be able to poke those holes in the stories. And then we want to be able to say, okay, and then what do I need? Step 4. And what are some steps to get this need actually met, even if Bob can't meet it? So if I still have a connection need missing, maybe I call a different friend. Maybe I connect emotionally to myself by doing some journaling or meditation or things that really fill my cup up. So there are steps to actually self-soothe and work through our emotions. Our emotions are just giving us feedback. And when we solve for those underlying potential challenges or causes that are stirring up those negative emotional feelings, and we solve for those intrinsically following those 5 steps, that is proper and effective self-soothing. And when we solve for the root, the surface symptoms, that emotion that's giving you that painful feedback falls away. And we actually feel regulated and peaceful. It's a huge tool that I use all the time. It's actually really explained in a lot of detail in our emotional mastery and belief reprogramming course, where we go through how to properly self-soothe. And it's very, very powerful work, because it takes you out of avoidance, repression, dismissal of self, dismissal of your feelings, even sometimes shaming yourself for your feelings and emotions. It takes you out of that mindset and quickly engages you in actually being able to solve for those root cause issues, which also over time stops those root cause issues from coming back. Because oh, here's that silly story that I like to tell myself sometimes. And self-soothing gets faster and faster and faster. And we stay at peace and regulated instead of having all this like emotional energy trying to push down or avoid ourselves as an attempt to avoid uncomfortable feelings rather than deal with them. So anyways, that's it for this video. I just wanted to shed some light on the idea of actual self-soothing, and how it relates to dismissive avoidance, but also fearful avoidance alike. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Please ask me any questions you have in the comments below, and please like the video as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in tomorrow's content.